You have to cut that bird's mouth so that it planes out with the rest of the rafters on the top. We try to take the wood out of the wall and put in insulation. That changes depending on how you apply the stress in relation to the grain direction.
Hello, bachelors, and welcome to another beautiful late night learning live show, live here 7:30 p.m. Central with me. I am Samuel Stevenson, and you guys are the wonderful people that are in the chats and in the crowd. I am glad you guys are deciding to spend your valuable time here today to learn something new. That is right. Tonight, we are going to be talking about the pink fluffy stuff. And no, it is not cotton candy. You should not eat it. And not only that, but you should probably not put it anywhere on your body because it's fiberglass. And that stuff doesn't feel good when it gets on you or in you. Though I cannot actually attest to the in you part because I didn't eat any, but we can assume, right? Let's assume. So first of all, guys, I want to shout out to the one and only Green Observer. Look, here he is in the chat, folks. This guy right here is the one who makes all of the music for the Bungalows for Bachelors channel. And he makes some bomb music. So you guys should hit him up if you want to like get some cool music made for some of your stuff. Pretty cool dude here. He is here to see Sam eat the forbidden cotton candy. Well, I am Sam, and unfortunately, I actually don't have any insulation with me, Mr. Green Observer, so I'm going to have to just not do that this time. We'll see what happens next time, but who knows? Who knows what could happen? But guys, I am currently working on moving all of my community updates and information from the Telegram channel over to the Skool group. All right. So if you haven't heard of Skool, what it is a platform that is put together by, I think Sam Owens is his name, and he just recently partnered up with Alex Hormozy, and it's this huge platform of communities and experts in a field. All right. And so the idea is anybody can get on there if they know something and they make a little community and they say, hey, I know stuff. They can make courses, they can make content, they can make whatever. And you basically can get a whole bunch of little niche experts about something. I felt like there's a spider in my hair for a second. You can get a bunch of little niche experts in all these different fields. And I just am moving mine over to that community to that platform, because it is a much higher value catered service to the community building part, which is what's important to me. Is I want to connect a bunch of people, and I want all you guys to be able to get as much value out of this as possible. So go check it out. There's a link in the description below. I'm going to verify that real quick, but there's a link in the description below. Go to www.skool.com/BFB success. That'll take you right over to my page. It's free. You can join right in. There's all kinds of fun stuff that happens if you join. So go check it out. And yeah, that's what you should be doing. So let's, well, we just kind of already did chat shout out here, but like, hey, shout out to the chat again, Mr. Green Observer. He's here watching live. Anybody else is watching live, go ahead and throw something in the chat. Let me know that you're here and that I can shout you out. If you have any questions, you can always feel free to ask, because that's what we're about here. So I've currently got only 3 programs, if you want to call them that, for you guys to learn things. So the first one, the House Forging Project. Yes, I renamed it because it's a better name than the other name. The other name was lame. This is basically the home building program, right? This is what are all the phases that happen in a house build? If you already know what the phases are, then you're good to go. Don't need to learn it. But if you have not experienced all of them, or you feel like you might be missing something, then check it out. Go give it a little listen, and maybe you can learn something there. There's something in there that you don't know. The other thing I got is the also renamed recently Become a Framing Nerd program. That's right, folks. So you could be a nerd like me. I've spent many years obsessing over wood design, wood detailing, the math, the numbers behind wood and connections and hardware and nails and screws and all that stuff, right? And I have boiled all that information down so that you don't have to go buy the American Wood Council National Design Specification books. You guys don't have to go read all those nerdy books, okay? You just go watch the Become a Framing Nerd program on my Skool server, and you can learn all those all the useful parts, all the stuff I've extracted out of that, so that you can like use it and build a house. Like if you ever like framing something and you're like, oh man, like I'm experienced with framing, but I'm looking at something and like that detail looks like it would be right, but I really don't know what the inspector would say, and you want to totally boost your confidence in that field, then check out the Become a Framing Nerd program because you'll probably learn something that's useful to you. So awesome. We got Centurion in the chat. Hello, good friend. Good to see you. Good to see you, my friend. It's been a minute. I haven't had something. I have not thought of something yet to have like another giveaway. It's sort of in the works. I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff at once here, but I might do something again where I pop on live every day because that was kind of a cool experience to get to touch base with you guys and do updates. So I'm thinking about doing something like that. I just got to figure out how I'm going to do it. So, and it's probably it very well might be something in the Skool server. I might not do it on YouTube. I might have it reserved for those who have decided to join my community so that I can reward that behavior. But yeah, being a nerd is cool. If it makes you money, I would say. Otherwise, I don't know how cool it is. But hey, it's at least cool to other nerds. And like status is relevant. Status is not relevant. Relative, that's the right word. Status is relative to your environment. So that's pretty cool. Now, if you guys want to take it a level beyond just the framing thing, and you want to take some powerful software and a super easy to use set of templates and guidelines, you can take the Draft It Yourself program, which is me showing you exactly how to draw yourself your own set of construction plans. That means you're not waiting on a designer, you're not paying exorbitant amounts for a designer, you're not dealing with the designer's issues and misinterpretations of what you wanted, and then you basically can manipulate it as much as you want and like get a really cool design. And hey, if there's something wrong with it, good news is it's your fault when you're done. So you got no one to blame. Hey, we got Wyatt in the chat as well. What's up, dude? Hey, man. Hope things are going well for you. Looks like you're getting close to being done. At least you said the shell was done on your most recent studio, little mini house studio things. What there's a word for that. Little studio thing. Guys, check out Mr. Wyatt. I think it's at MG Construction on Instagram. This guy is in California and he builds these fantastic little bungalows. And it is just like awesome to see how much detail and how much little bit of house can be put into these little things. So check him out. Oh my goodness. Chat's popping, guys. It's so good to see everybody. Hey, how's it going? Let's see. Centurion just applied for the school. Awesome. Yeah, man. Come join everybody. Come join me. Oh my God. Then we got oh my God. Oh, there are. Okay. So everybody hop on my Skool server, please. It is free because that's where I'm moving everything from Telegram over to there. That's where I'm going to interact the most with you guys and like I got a whole bunch of ideas coming for stuff to give you. One of the ideas, for example, okay. So I am not the best builder. I am not the best. I'm a pretty good like framer in my brain. I'm not the fastest framer in person, but like planning and development and all of the like stuff that when it goes on behind the scenes, like that stuff is an area of expertise of mine. And so one of the things I'm thinking about doing is I'm going to take this ADU project, right, for this one particular person. And I'm going to break down all the numbers. I'm going to say, okay, how much do we spend on this? How much do we spend on this? How off was I on my budget here and here and here? What are the things that we can expect to spend for someone to do a project like this? And then if you're, of course, in my community and you want to see some numbers and you'd be like, hey, because what's going to come out of that is some kind of list of stuff, right? And somewhere around that, I can do some kind of like, hey, what would this have cost to build where you are? And if you want to request that information, I'm sure we can figure something out. So yeah, join the Skool server like Mr. Centurion here did. Link is in the description below. I'm also going to throw it in the chat. That way you don't have to go anywhere. It's just super duper easy. But yeah, if you join that, you can request cool stuff from me. We can have meetups. We can have all kinds of fun stuff going on. Hopefully I spelled it right because I'm sending it. Awesome. What do we got going on? We got Jenna Nelson in the chat. Hello, everyone. Hello, Jenna. Elena's bar. Hello, Elena. How's it going? Good to see you. It's been a minute. I've honestly, Elena, I have bounced to Colorado and back. I didn't say anything because I got a lot to do, but I'm sure I'll come by and say hi to you guys at some point. We got Tam. Hello, Tam. I hope you're here and ready to learn something. We're going to go over installation today. I promise. I'm just getting through the introductions and stuff. But yeah, we're going to learn some cool stuff about insulation, about like vapor and moisture problems in your walls. And we're going to talk about like some options and like, what is this stuff important to you? Should you care? Should you not? We're going to like at the end of this, you're going to understand. It's going to be great. That's right, Jenna. The chat is popping. This is fantastic. I'm going to actually have to like skip over some of this stuff. Centurion says, keep the Telegram for announcements. I will consider that, Centurion, but one of the nice things about Skool is that when I make a post, I can choose to have it like email blast everybody that is, if it's like important, I can choose to have an email blast. And so like some people for Telegram is going to be good, some people for email it's not. But honestly, since you've said something and brought it up, I will consider keeping it just to like, it's one more place to shoot an announcement. So it can't hurt. So appreciate you saying something. Awesome. Okay. Doing well. Thanks, Sam. Please stop by. We're always happy to see you, and I look forward to playing the piano with you. That is right, friends. Elena's Bar. Check out her channel, Elena's Bar Fitness. She's got all kinds of yoga and like body positivity stuff. Helps fat people feel. I'm just kidding, guys. No, she's a little bit of a yoga and dance instructor, and has some like great fitness minded stuff on her channel. And if you're down for some good fun music, that's also something she does. So that's a good time. Check it out, guys. We need more Elena and Sam piano videos. One thing at a time, guys. It takes a lot of time out of Bungalows for Bachelors to make those wonderful videos. Awesome. Okay, so let's get right into it, guys. Let's get into the topic of conversation today. Now that everybody's here and pumped up and ready to learn something. So, what is insulation? Well, if we were to just build houses with like siding and studs and sheetrock and nothing inside the wall, then when the sun hits your walls and the sun's shining down on your roof, you would get really hot really quick. The insulation is keeping heat from radiating into your building, conducting technically, but we'll talk about that. And that's like one of the biggest things that it's doing for you. So you got to have insulation. It keeps energy in your house or energy out of your house in terms of like heat. So, and we all know here at Bungalows for Bachelors that there is no such thing as cold, there is only the absence of heat. So we want to manage that with our insulation. So what are some basic types? Okay, you got fiberglass, which is the pink fluffy stuff. It doesn't always have to be pink, but that is a main brand, Owens Corning, pink, right? You've got cellulose, so you can either do either one of those two things. You can blow it in, or you can buy it in bats, which are like big chunks, or you could buy it in rolls and like roll it out. You can buy it in sheets, right? Different shapes. But you've got those products. Now, along with those is mineral wool insulation. One of the main brands would be known as rock wool, okay? And it's basically going to be a little more flame resistant, a little more dense, a little more sound resistant. It's going to have better properties to it. So it's more expensive, but it's going to be honestly, a little bit easier to install because it's a little more stiff, and it's going to generally do its job better than fiberglass would. So pay a little bit more and get a little bit better product. So that's one of the things you could do. Now, aside from that, you've got spray foams, okay? So when you're spraying foam into your walls, you're going to have a little nozzle that's connecting two tanks, and it's going to mix inside your nozzle, and it's going to spray that mixture out onto the thing. And then what it is part A, part B, and they're going to blend together. And when they start combining, a foam reaction occurs and basically generates gas. And the way that like the monomers combined to make the new polymer, that is the foam, you are going to get certain types of properties. So two kinds of spray foams, open cell and closed cell. All right. Closed cell spray foam is like, imagine like It's very stiff and rock-like. Okay, when you spray like a can of great foam, you ever use that? Like, oh, you found a seal, like a hole in your wall or something. I'm going to seal it up, or something in your basement or whatever. You go to the store, you buy a can, and you like spray it. It goes, fills up, and then like as it dries out, it's like as it cures, it's like expands a little bit, right? So that's great foam. That is a closed cell foam. What that means is every single little bubble you have is a sealed bubble. Air and vapor and water will not pass through the foam. That's one thing you should keep in mind. Oh, there goes the camera. One of these days I'll figure out how to permanently solve the GPU problem. So I keep saying that. Open cell spray foam is a little bit different. All right. So it's also going to be rigid. It's not going to feel spongy per se, but open cell is going to act a lot more like a sponge would, in that all of the like cell bubble structure, they're actually open to each other. They're not closed bubbles. And so what that does is allows water and vapor in the, water. It allows air and vapor in the air, like water vapor, little tiny particles of water. They can pass through the insulation. All right. And that's important. We're going to talk about why that's important. So different kinds. And then last, of course, we have like rigid foams. All right. So there's generally three types you're going to use. You can have EPS, XPS, or PIR, sometimes what it's called. EPS, expanded polystyrene. All right. So that's going to be like your packaging foams. All right. So if you get a computer and inside the computer is a big white chunk of this weird looking stuff, and it's a bunch of little white dots, that's expanded polystyrene. All right. It's been expanded to fill a mold, and that is what is used. So next is XPS, extruded polystyrene. It's going to look a little bit smoother. In terms of like why these things are different, why they matter. Okay. Your expanded polystyrene is going to be the cheapest one. Next up is going to be extruded polystyrene, and that one's going to be a little more expensive and a little bit better at insulating per inch, right? It's going to keep the heat out better in the same thickness than the expanded. And the drawback is that the extruded will slowly lose that ability to insulate over time. It'll like still insulate, but it won't insulate as well over time. That's just a property, a feature, not a feature. Something. It's a thing. It's a thing that you got to deal with it when you buy it. So the last one, and my personal favorite, is polyisocyanurate, PIR. Okay, also known as polyiso. This is one of my favorites because it insulates the highest per inch, and therefore it's going to consume the less space, which matters when you have to build stuff. You don't really want bulky stuff. All right, so you're gonna want to use polyiso because it's efficient. The only drawback to using it really is that it starts to basically not insulate at all if you get into like really, 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 really cold climates. So if you're in most of America, you're probably fine. But if you start to get towards Central America, not like Central United States, and go up and north into Canada where it starts to get a lot colder, you're going to deal with that problem, and you're not going to want to use polyiso. But generally, that's the one I would want to use. And also, it's the most resistant to just like deterioration and stuff. So those are the types we can work with. Oh my goodness. What do we got here? Not body positivity on my channel. That's right, Elena. We don't do any of that stuff. We don't do any of that stuff. That's funny. He didn't even say that you have tons of good vids about Red Pill. Yes, that is also true. I mean, I think Elena's got a wonderful mix of a lot of wonderful categories, and that is one of them. So shout out to Elena for doing that. I appreciate it. Centurion says email would be good too. Okay, great. Then I'll make sure Skool server and Telegram, at least for the announcements parts, are like, both functioning and shooting out stuff. I will not forward people to Telegram anymore, simply because it's already free on Skool. So it's probably not going to grow, but you know what? I'll still use it. If it's only for you, Centurion, I will do it. Awesome. Apparently, Elena's Bars got some good blogs. Awesome. Okay. Wyatt says, you notice the sound difference with rock wool. Okay, that's good to know. There's some feedback right there for you guys. Use rock wool, you will notice much better sound insulating quality. Thank you. Thank you for that, Mr. MG. Awesome. Okay, where am I? What about the foam sheets? Foam sheets. I think you're referring to, so the rigid insulation I'm talking about, the EPS, XPS, and polyiso, those are foam boards. They're like 4-foot by 8-foot sheets of insulation. I think, is that what you're referring to? Because that's typically the products you can buy that in. So I think that's what you meant, but let's verify that in case I'm wrong. All right. Thank you, Sam. Appreciate you and your kind support. Love your construction videos. Awesome. I'm here to serve. I'm here to help you guys learn how to do construction things. That's the whole point. So let's get right back into it, guys. So why do we need insulation? We want to keep the heat out, or we want to keep the heat in. All right. Now we're going to talk about heat. So let's get nerdy. Let's get smart. Here's some engineering information, if you want to call it that. All right. 3 types of heat transfer. First of all, let's think about what is heat energy, right? It's just like joules. It's energy, okay? And so it excites particles, makes them move faster, yada, yada, yada. That's energy, okay? So if there's a hot stove on my table here, and I put my hand on it, and I touch the hot stove, I am going to use one of the types of heat energy when I put my hand on the stove. I'm going to use conduction. Conduction is a direct body-to-body physical connection where the particles in one body are going to directly start vibrating the particles in the next body, and the heat will propagate through both of them very, very quickly. All right. Why it says haven't heard joules since physics class. Yes, sir. That's what we're here for. I hope it gets a little better. All right. So conduction is the first one. It's going to conduct that heat right into your hand, and you're going to feel it. It's not going to be a good experience. So another type of heat transfer is, let's say, convection. Okay. Convection is typically associated with, okay, there's a hot source and we're going to blow air or any fluid, technically, doesn't have to be air, but any fluid over a hot thing. And the air particles are going to pick up the heat energy faster. And that heat energy is going to transfer to something else. So if I just stand next to the burner and I put a fan on the other side of it, and I turn the fan on and I blow hot air over the burner onto me, I'm going to feel the convection. I'm going to feel the convection heat transfer. All right. Fluid picks up heat, transfers it to my hands. It's going to be faster than just radiation. And I'll talk about radiation in a second. But that's partially why like the whole convection oven thing came out. They figured out that, oh, if we blow the air around in the oven, it'll cook the food faster. Cool. So that is convection. Conduction, convection, and radiation are the 3 types. All right. So radiation would be, I'm just standing next to the oven and the burner's on high, and I can I'm not putting my hand over it or anything, but I can just stand there and I can feel heat like hitting my skin, right? That is radiative heat. All right. So that element on the stove is firing off photons and a bunch of electromagnetic energy, and that stuff is hitting you in the face, and your face particles are going, we're picking up extra energy. We're going to start warming up. And that's what it's sensing on your face. All right. So 3 types of heat transfer. Now, why do we care about heat transfer? Well, it's because that is what insulation is to stop. And therefore, we need to know what the words are we're describing. Okay. So generally, when you're going to build a house envelope, let's say it's a shed. Let's make it real simple. You got a shed and you're going to get a box. You want to keep it's a hot sunny day. We have air conditioning on the inside. We want to keep the heat out. Therefore, what's going to happen if we don't do anything? It's hot outside, it's cold inside, and there's no AC. What's going to happen? Everybody knows what's going to happen. Eventually, it's going to warm up on the inside. Why does it do that? Because nature tends toward entropy and chaos. And therefore, all of the heat energy that's outside is going to try to come into the inside because everything's trying to balance out. Everything's trying to equal out all the time. Things at higher energy states are always moving towards lower energy states. That is how the world works. So if we don't do anything, then that heat energy is going to get absorbed through the walls into our box, into our shed. The amount and the rate at which it does so is a function of our insulation in the wall. If we have no insulation, it will happen fast. If we have lots of insulation, it will happen very slowly. Okay? So we are mostly concerned with conduction in this case. That is our insulation's job. And basically what's happening is, in the case of conduction, right, the sun is going to heat up the wall of our house with radiation, mostly, okay? And that radiative heat is going to warm up the physical, siding itself, all right? Here's a crazy thing about radiation, right? Everybody and everybody emits radiation unless it's at 0 degrees Kelvin. And then it emits no radiation. Correct me if you think I'm wrong. That's a possibility, but that's as far as I remember. Okay. So that means this wall over here is actually emitting radiation. I am emitting radiation. This desk is emitting radiation. But they are varying levels based on how much energy they have. Okay. So you put 10 people in an empty room, and eventually the temperature of the room goes up. Why? Because now those 10 people are radiating their body heat out into the room. All right. Our bodies naturally exist at a higher temperature than our environments. We like to be in 60, 70 degrees, 30, 35%, 40% humidity. Nothing crazy like that. That's a comfortable place for us to be as humans. But our bodies are operating at 90, oh shoot, I want to say 96, 97, 98 temperature. It's been a minute since I've had to take my body temperature. It's somewhere in there. All right. 100 over 100 is a fever. Somebody in the chat, please correct me and tell me what optimal body temperature is supposed to be. But it's higher. It's hotter than the environment we're in. Okay. So our body is radiating that heat into the environment. And guess what happens, guys? When the environment is hotter than our body, it radiates heat into our body. And so we have to actually find ways like biologically of dealing with that, which is like what sweating is for and all kinds of cool stuff. But anyway, that's the whole radiating like heat transfer thing. Now, that said, we have our little box. We're not really concerned with, okay, so like let's talk about the sun. The sun comes on, it warms up the wall. That wall is going to try to push that heat into our house. Okay, so now your siding is warm. Your siding is on some kind of sheathing product, hopefully. It's warm. And now the sheathing product is going to try to push that heat into our house. And how is it going to do that? It can radiate heat, it can conduct heat, and it can convect heat. Now, convecting heat is mostly not applicable because convection happens when there's fluid movement, when there's air movement, blowing air. And if you build a tight house, you're not going to have that problem. So let's throw convection out the window. We're dealing with radiation and conduction. All right. Now, radiation happens through air. And if it's a high enough radiation, it will go through solid objects, but we're not going to talk about that. Okay, so effectively the wood's not doing much radiation. That's not a big problem. The conduction is the biggest thing, okay? So what is the conduction that's happening? Well, your insulation is touching your sheathing product inside your wall cavity. And so the warm wood is touching your insulation. And so there is a like rate that's defined that says how much energy will pass through this thing over a certain amount of time. How thick is it? What is the R value? Okay. So the R value describes the like how efficient is this thing at slowing down the heat. Higher R value means it's better at it. Okay. It's gonna slow down that heat transfer. So that's what we're concerned with. Whatever that material is that slows down that heat transfer is going to allow us to control the inside of our climate, inside of our house better. Okay. If we had almost no insulation and we had the AC running on the inside, we'd have to do more work with the AC to keep that air cold because a lot of the heat's going to get like sucked into the house. The heat's going to just drain into the house through the walls. It's not slowed down. Okay. So that's the thing we want to talk about. Now, how does insulation affect the design of a home? It's sort of important because you kind of want to know, like, all right, how thick do my walls need to be? If I'm building way up in Saskatchewan, Canada, I might need some pretty thick walls because I need a lot of insulation because it's going to be very cold and I don't want to die. If I'm in Texas, I might want some insulation, but for different reasons. It's going to be very hot. And so I don't want the heat to kill me either. But the heat differential, the 100 degrees to 70 degrees, is less of a temperature differential than 70 degrees to negative 20 degrees. Okay. And the whole thing about insulation, oh, there goes the camera again. The whole thing about insulation, it's a good thing I got to keep an eye on this, is it's affected by the delta T. Okay. So if I am 90, oh, let's see, somebody, thank you, Elena. I appreciate that. 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. The average human radiates about 100 watts worth of heat at rest. Wow. That's some science. Thank you. Okay, so 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, body temperature. If I go into a room that's 90, well, okay, it's not going to work that way. But let's say I go into a room that's 98.6 degrees. I'm not going to feel any delta T. There's no like heat transfer there. It's more complicated than that, but basically, if I go into a room that's 100 degrees, it's going to be sort of hot. If I go into a room that's 300 degrees, it's going to be very hot, right? And so like the larger that delta T change in temperature is between one state and the other state, the faster heat's going to flow, all right? Therefore, we want to keep in mind that the like insulation requirements are going to affect the design of a home based on where you're building. If you're like your average house temperature, you want it to be 70 degrees and it's going to be negative 20 degrees outside, then that is 90-degree difference. Versus in Texas, it's hot. Okay, it's 110 degrees maybe. All right, that's 40-degree difference. You're just going to need less insulation. So that's that. Let's hit the chats real quick, guys. Oh, let's see. I may not do construction, but I love nerdy topics. That's good because we're here to talk about nerdy topics. Tam says, so well explained, as always, love it. Oh, thank you, Tam. I appreciate that. Elena is giving us that wonderful number 98.6 for adults. And Green Observer is actually very smart. He is a very smart man. He knows lots of cool stuff. So, if you want to know how to type the degree symbol, just Google it. There's probably a control number pad command you can type to like input the degree symbol for those who have not had to type degrees before. Hashtag college. All right. So it affects how thick your wall is going to be. You should know something about it. Okay. What are some of the cost comparisons? Okay. So if you want the cheapest, easiest, fastest thing, just go with fiberglass. It's going to be the cheapest. Oh, great question. Great question, Centurion. Okay, so does higher R value mean thicker insulation? No, sir. It does not quite mean that. Higher R value means it's more insulating per inch. So if I have this inch of mouse pad, it's going to insulate some number versus an inch of wood versus an inch of rock versus an inch of glass. All different stuff, okay? And so the R value is describing literally the material properties and how the material itself is able to slow down that process of heat transfer. So one of the like interesting things that is kind of cool, one of the best insulators is air, okay? And the reason that these foam products and these fiberglass and mineral wool products are so well insulating is because they capture lots of little individual pockets of air. Okay, if you only have air in your wall and no insulation, the air can flow and like distribute its heat too easily. But when you have a fiberglass product or a foam product, there's lots of very like microscopic tiny air bubbles and they can't move around. They can't like swap energy to each other. The energy has to move from one bubble to the next bubble all the way through it. And air is actually one of the best insulating like easily available like materials. Okay, so that's what that means. Do radiant barriers decrease the amount of insulation you need? I would say no. Okay, so like if you're building something, no one's going to look at your radiant barrier and be like, oh, well, you need less insulation per code. No, you need insulation for whatever is required. What the radiant barrier will do is it will generally keep more energy in your house and more energy out of your house at the same time. So like it is an improvement by far, which is why people do it, but it is not like it's not the end all be all. It doesn't make a huge impact. It certainly wouldn't change the amount of insulation you would use. It would be like a peace of mind kind of thing. And I'll talk a little bit about the radiation stuff and all that when we get to the stuff. I got some stuff to show you guys. I'm sharing my screen today, so stick around for that. Okay, construction implications, costs. Okay, so fiberglass, pretty cheap. Cellulose, a little bit more expensive than fiberglass, but also still pretty cheap. If you start using rigid insulations of any kind, it's going to start adding up in price because it's just like for the R value, the dollar value is high. Okay. It's also kind of more annoying to install depending on what you're putting it on. Just depends. And the most expensive you're going to get are going to be the spray foams. Okay. Because they're super convenient. You just spray the stuff in there. And they're also one of the highest R values per inch. So they're very, very, very good at insulating. So for example, if you've got like a 2x4 wall, you only need to hit like R13, then you pretty much spray 2 inches of the stuff in there and you're good. You don't need to fill the whole wall with like 3.5 or whatever. Like, there's all kinds of stuff you can do, but like they're the best insulating per inch. So there's a cost associated with that though. Closed cell is better R value per inch than open cell, just so you know. Okay. So how are we doing here? Let me, so the cost, flash and bat. Okay. Did I finish talking about costs? I did. Oh, construction complications. All right. So I'm going to save this topic a little bit for the end when I show you my cool Excel file thing. But otherwise, flash and bat is a term we like to use for basically like you're going to use a little bit of a spray foam, probably a closed cell spray foam because the point's to air seal. And then you're going to fill the rest of the cavity with something cheaper because you don't want to get all the R value from the foam because it's so expensive. But if you do use like a closed cell spray foam and just like put a layer on, then like you can air seal a lot more effectively and you get a whole bunch of other benefits out of it. So there's a lot of reasons to do the flash and bat system. Okay, thermal bridging. Thermal bridging is when you have a conductive material in your wall that is less insulating than your insulation product. Okay. And typically what we're referring to with thermal bridging is your studs. This wall is not made of just fiberglass. It's made of wood. And infilled in the wood is the fiberglass, which means there's wood touching the sheetrock here and on the other side of it as well. Okay, so if this was an exterior wall, then I know that I've got siding touching wood, touching my sheetrock. Because it's like the heat can literally conduct through your studs into your wall and just go right past your sheetrock. That's a thing. It's called a thermal bridge. It's because it's bridging an inefficiency through your wall. There's all kinds of stuff people will do to spend money to remove thermal bridges and have some kind of full insulation barrier. There's all kinds of rigids and stuff you can put on the outside to improve that process. I would argue that it's probably not worth it in most cases, but that's because I have a very particular approach, and I'm going to talk about why when I get down to the bottom. And the bottom, the when I show you the file I've got. But that's that. Okay, so oh, hey, look, we're there. Insulation and vapor condensation. Okay, guys, so let's answer this question real quick. From Elena, will fiberglass have worse insulation? Fiberglass is one of the least insulating, aside from like non-insulating products. Like wood is worse. Your wood is about depending on like moisture content and other stuff, it's about R1 per inch. All right, so you have a 2x4. That thing is 3.5 inches wide. That's your framed wall thickness. And so you have R3.5 where the wood is. And your fiberglass is R13. So it's like almost a fourth, if my math is right in my head. It's about a fourth as good. So like wood's pretty bad. Fiberglass is way better than wood. But like if you do a spray foam, then it's much better or something. Let's see. Can you cover how to install in a short or something? Tips and new mistakes. Yeah, Centurion. Are you talking about fiberglass specifically? Or are you talking about something different? Because I could kind of point some things out on the garage. We're about to cover it up with drywall, so I could say some stuff. And I ran around with my camera on my head, so I've got some long form content video potentially coming to you guys. That's right, maybe a long form content. I haven't made one of those in a minute. So yeah, clarify that question a little bit. Oh, good point. Good point, Wyatt. Spray foam is a nightmare for repairs. That is the only reason he hates it. That's a very good point. Whenever you spray a wall, guys, remember you've got wires in your walls. you've got plumbing in your walls. If you spray that stuff in there, you are burying it in like foam, which means if you got to work on it or access something, guess what? You're chipping out foam and ripping out foam, and it's no fun. I have seen that happen on a few custom home builds where nobody was coordinating the effort properly and stuff had to get ripped out and moved, and it's a nightmare. Not my builds. Just gonna say that. Okay, so let's get into some cool nerdy stuff here. I got a nerdy file to show you guys. So what I've built here, and I built this, while I was at the engineering firm. This was a while ago. But I was curious. I want to do some math. I read a book by Joe Listebrick, however you pronounce his name, building science expert guy. And I made a little chart that like shows the math behind some of his concepts. So let's do this, share, and let's see what happened here. Okay, so there's me in the screen. You don't really need to see me, so let's bring up the screen. Okay, so this, my friends, is my climate wall analysis tool. This is downloadable from my Skool server right now. If you want to go find it, it's free. You just join the Skool server, hit the link in the description below, and you can go beep, beep, boop, boop, beep, boop, beep, download, and you've got this. You can put this on your computer. Use it for your projects. But let me show you how it works. Okay, so what I've done here is I've created a risk assessment tool for analyzing like moisture condensation problems on the inside of your sheathing layer on your wall. Okay, and I'll talk about why this is important in a second. And that second is right now. Okay, so this is important because if it is cold outside and it's warm inside, warm, humid air will condense on a cold surface. We've all seen it happen in our cars for one reason or another. It happens in a bathroom when you take a shower. Your mirror is relatively cool compared to the temperature of the water and like all the steam in the air. So it condenses onto your mirror and it drips down. All right. So this is showing that same process happening inside your walls in your house. Why is that bad? Well, it's because water vapor is good. It doesn't do anything bad. But water condensed is water. And water getting your walls wet is bad because it feeds the mold bugs. And the mold bugs want to eat your wood, especially when it's wet. So we don't want these things to happen. Okay? So how do we avoid these things happening? Should we avoid these things from happening? What is the risk analysis here? That's what this chart is for. Let me show you what happens. Okay? So there's some assumptions made. First of all, you got to have a location. This is Port Angeles, Washington. It's where I pulled this climate history data from. These are average low temperatures for months in this area. Okay? This just gives me some kind of idea. Like the yellow line over here on the graph is saying, oh, look at the temperature throughout the year. It's varying. Okay? June, then it's cold, then it's get hot, then it's cold. Okay? That's the seasons. That matters because I want to know what outside temperature is. Okay? So when we build a wall assembly, we can put insulation in the wall and we can put insulation on the outside of the wall as rigid foam boards or bats of some kind, but we can put insulation outside the wall. All right. The reason we would do that is because the air that's warm in our house can pass, the vapor can pass through the paint. It will pass through the drywall. It will pass through the insulation and it will touch the sheathing that is on the outside of your house. Okay. The OSB or plywood that's there, it will touch that unless you have used a closed cell spray foam on the inside of your house. Then it will not, because remember, air cannot pass through the closed cell foam. You don't have to deal with this problem if you have done that. So forget what I'm saying if that's what you'd like to do. On the other hand, for pretty much everything else, you have to deal with this. Okay. So warm, moist air will come into contact with the cold surface that is your sheathing in the cold months. Okay. Over here, you can see this dip in the cold section. The area that exists between red line and yellow curve is bad risk area. Okay. What that means is supposedly from the month of November through December, January, February, March, and April, approximately, the low temperature of the day is going to put my house at risk of having condensation on the inside of my wall, causing mold. That's bad. Okay, but we're not done yet. We have to think about more variables. What if, and that's if, okay, so the inputs up here are my wall R value, my exterior wall R value, and my winter temperature. I'm assuming I want to keep it 65 inside the home. If you raise this temperature, it makes it worse. If you lower the temperature, it makes it better. Okay. If I have R19 on my wall, so the one I'm just doing right now, the garage to ADU conversion, is a 2x6 wall with fiberglass. That makes it R19. Okay. So, and I put nothing on the outside of the wall. And we will explain a little bit why for this particular case. But this is our risk curve. Okay. If, for example, I put something on the outside and I scroll down here, I've got exterior wall polyiso here. It shows my thicknesses and my R values. If I put, let's say, 2 inches of this foam on the outside of my wall, I will get 13.1 up here. Look what happens to my risk curve. I now have 0 area between the bottom of my curve and my red line. So there is no risk that I have a condensation problem. Well, how did that possibly happen? How did I remove the risk? Well, it's very simple. The wood sheathing is our risk point because that's where the air will stop. That's the vapor, like condensation point. Okay? Where that point happens is now going to be warmer because remember, it's cold outside, it's warm inside. The way insulation works is if it's 0 degrees on one side and 50 degrees on the other side of the insulation, and I take my hand and I put it right in the middle of the insulation, guess what? My hand is going to feel 25 degrees. That's exactly how it works. It's very proportional, nothing crazy. Therefore, what just happened was I basically took my wood sheathing and I put it almost halfway between my R19 on the wall inside and my R13 on the wall outside. And therefore, my sheathing is now going to be like half the temperature difference between outside and inside. So it's going to warm up, which means condensation risk goes away. All right, now what happens if I don't do 2 inches, I do 1 inch? So now I have 6.5 here, okay? My risk curve gets a little bit potentially worse. And if I have nothing, my risk curve has some potential problems here. Now, something to think about. The yellow line you see does not mean this is the temperature all the time at all times, okay? It means it's the average low. So it could get lower than this, and it probably will get warmer than this. So what you're not seeing is actually like at the day, like when a day goes by, temperature warms up because the sun comes up and then the sun goes away and it cools back down over nighttime. So there's actually like this big oscillating thing happening, and the yellow line is defining the bottom of the oscillation. It's the bottom of that risk curve. And over here, the red line is assuming something, okay? We're assuming 40% relative humidity. Guys, what that means is we're getting on the like more comfortable side of air being humid. If we remove some of the humidity out of the air and we dry it down to 30% relative humidity, which you could control with a dehumidifier in your house, then you're actually at the green line and there is no risk of condensation. So all of these things combining mean that like you should not look at this graph and be like, oh my God, I need to put exterior R value insulation. Otherwise I'm going to have mold and my house is going to fall apart and I'm going to have a bad day and I'm going to have to pay millions of dollars for fixes. And no, we don't have to worry about that. Okay. This is all potential risk. You balance the risks, you balance the controls, and you analyze the situation and deal with it. Okay. So that's basically how that works. Camera's broken again. So let's fix that. There we go. So hopefully that's enough to like understand. If you want to learn more and you want better explanation, join my school group. You can ask more questions in there. I'd be happy to describe answers in there. And if you want to get a one-on-one with me, you can do that too. But that's what I got. If you want to download the file, it's free and available. Join the school server, description in the link below, www.skool.com/BFB success, and you can get the cool stuff. So, oh, he says, yeah, with fiberglass rolls. I think a short how-to tools required would be good. Okay, you know what? Let me give you that right now. It's pretty simple. And I am not necessarily an expert. Okay, so fiberglass rolls and bats, if they're paper-faced, which most of them are probably going to be. Then on the paper edges, there's actually a flap, and you fold the flap out, and it like it's you literally just push it into the stud cavity. If there's stuff in the way, you cut the thing into a shape that makes it go in the wall, and then you just like put more in. All right, it's pretty simple. You put that in the wall, fold the flaps out, take a stapler and like staple the thing down. Some people will complain that if you're stapling it on the studs, now your drywall is not going to be going on an even plane. So whatever. You can like put the flaps on the inside of the stud and like staple in sideways if you want. I don't care. You do it however you like. But that's like basically how that goes in. You take it out of the bag, open it up, put it in the wall, staple it on. It's pretty cool. Tools. I like using a hammer tacker. It's a stapler, but it's a hammer. Okay. It's fast and easy. Some people would use an electric stapler that goes ka-chunka super easily. Some people would use a hand stapler where they got to pull a spring. If they want their hand to be like totally worn out by the time they're done, you can do that. Get a good insulation knife. And by good, I mean just get an insulation knife because you're going to wear out the blade cutting fiberglass and stuff. It just does that. So insulation knives are the ones that have a little twisty knob and the blade can come out like 4 inches. You can like break off the tips in incrementals if you want to. But yeah, I basically go through those blades kind of like candy when I'm doing it because I don't like fighting dull blades. So yeah, get an insulation knife, get a stapler. And if you want to cut the insulation, trick to cutting the insulation, put it on a flat piece of wood, press the insulation down, and then just run the blade over it, and boop, it'll cut through all the fiberglass. Super easy, no problem. Everything else beyond that is just taking your hands and like ripping the stuff apart and like just literally make it go where you need it to go. It's pretty straightforward. I hope that was useful enough. Let me know in the chat if that was not enough, and we'll do something else. Okay. It's also wet from November to April. Yes, correct. The humidity on the outside of the house doesn't really have a factor, and here's why. Humidity and vapor moves from hot to cold. Things dry to the cold side. If I have a wall assembly and it's hot on this side, cold on this side, if there's warm, moist air over here, the vapor will naturally diffuse towards the place with less humidity, okay, towards cold. That's a problem in cold climate because cold outside, hot inside, vapor is going to be driven towards the outside through your wall assembly. And so if it's going to want to go that way and hit your sheathing that's cold and condense, then you have a problem. On the outside, we don't care because it's just humid or not. Like it doesn't really make a difference what the outside is doing. It's not affecting that wall assembly dynamic. Oh, I wonder if fiberglass is paper, how does it protect wood from wet weather? This is not a stupid question. This is a reasonable question. Don't know how much about construction. They make an actual insulation knife and it's like 12 inches long. That thing is the best. My goodness, sir. What a tool. I like it. I have not used one myself. I might not invest in getting one myself. I don't know how often I'll be installing insulation. Depends on how many bungalows I get through in my lifetime. But I bet you go through a lot more than me, so that's impressive. A 12-inch blade. Centurion says, do you wear any protective gear when installing insulation? You will breathe in fiberglass dust if you are not wearing a mask. If you want to cough and have irritated lungs, don't worry about it. If you don't want to cough and have irritated lungs and eyes and everything else and skin, like it literally, if the sun shines through the window while you're doing this, you'll just see little tiny bits of fiberglass floating through the air, and you know you're just breathing that shit in. So yeah, get a mask that will filter that out if you don't want to breathe it in. You can put gloves on if you want to keep it off your hands to some extent, but like maybe wear like a long sleeve because like literally, I mean, your arms are going to rub against it. It's just the process of putting it in. Is it going to kill you? No. I am here. I wore gloves. That's what I wore. And my arms are just like, you know, it'll go away after a day. They're a little itchy, but it'll go after a day. Oh yes, glasses. I would say cover your eyes when you're doing stuff above you because it literally will fall down in your face, and that is not a good feeling. Good idea. Okay, what is this question? If fiberglass is paper, how does it protect wood from wet weather? Well, fiberglass is inside your wall, and so it's not doing any wet weather protection. So wet weather is outside your house. Wet weather is going to hit the siding product that's on your house, whether it's like wood or hardy or whatever, LP. It's going to hit that product that's going to run down to the ground and go away from your house. That's what that's for. The water I'm talking about is coming from the vapor in your air inside your house. Let's see. I thought you would put it on both sides. No. Let's see. I'm not sure what it is on both sides. Insulation. Okay, so maybe possibly insulation. I was referring to insulation going on both sides to warm up the wood sheathing that is in your wall. That's what I was referring to. So it's only on the inside of the house, right? Generally, yes, the fiberglass only is on the inside of your wall cavity because that's what most people build. Like, unless you start to get a little bit fancier or a little bit colder climates, people will start to put insulation on the outside. And I don't mean on literally the outside. They're going to cover that up with siding. They're not just going to leave insulation hanging out there. Okay, so I went through that. Let me get my bearings here. So what are the considerations you should give to your insulation? All right, here's my take. On this garage to ADU project, we are doing everything that it takes to meet code, build properly, make a good tight structure. This thing is going to be airtight. I will let you guys know what the blower door test is on this thing. We sealed the foam sill to the foundation and the foam sill up to the bottom plate. And we sealed with liquid flashing the bottom of the zip to the concrete all the way around. So like those, and like we did some air sealing around the ceiling detail. So the ceiling diaphragm is going to be pretty typical. But I'll let you know what the blower door test is because this thing should be come out pretty tight. So there's not going to be any air leakage problems, which I think is more important. Okay. If you are going to build a heat efficient structure, you will spend way more valuable money sealing the thing up, keeping it airtight so there's not air leakage waste transfer, than thickening the walls up and putting more insulation in and spending more money on insulation products. Because if I take a house full of nice, cool air and it's leaking and I lose all the cool air, it does not matter how efficient my wall was. The heat didn't even have time to radiate into the house because I lost the air to the outside. And the air is the thing we're trying to keep a certain temperature. So if you lose the air, it doesn't matter what your wall is. So I put a preference on keeping the building tight, controlling the airflow, so there's no lost air, and then I go with like a basic insulation product. Now, if I was going to upgrade for better sound insulation quality, I might use a Rockwool product. I might do that. If I have an aesthetic I'm trying to reach or a structural thing where I don't want to use fiberglass because it requires a lot of thickness to get that R value, I might want a thinner thing, so I might use a closed cell spray foam for that. It depends on the application. But in most cases, I am not going to prioritize having a super thermally efficient wall assembly. It's just not that important to me compared to like the savings in the air leaking. And I'm a very practical guy. I'm not trying to build like the superest, fanciest, most efficient greenhouses that don't require any energy to exist on. I'm just trying to build good houses that people can afford that like are going to last a long time and like perform in a reasonable way. That's what I'm after. What are your thoughts on insulating interior walls? Okay, that's a great question. It seems like something that might be reasonable. It can be reasonable for sound insulating, but you will also potentially do something bad if you do that, okay? And this comes from the heat management part, okay? I'm just asking every dumb question I could think of. No, these are not dumb questions. These are perfectly reasonable questions. And hopefully I can say something that you wouldn't have thought of beforehand. And you're like, oh shoot, well, maybe I don't want to do that. So yeah, Mr. White, it's not common practice, but I like to do interior walls for sound transfer reasons. Hey, you know what? That's a great reason to do that. And assuming you have a well-balanced HVAC system, it's not a problem, okay? Here's what you can do that might be bad if you insulate all of your interior walls. Your HVAC system, the heating, ventilating, and air conditioning, is designed to pull air from one spot and blow air to a different spot. It's cycling air through your house. It's filtering it. It's conditioning the temperature and humidity. It's making the air be a certain temperature and humidity most of the time, and cleanliness. That's what it's doing. Okay. And the way they're designed is to blow air out one way so that air travels through your house, which generally means it's going to go through the doorway of your bedroom, through a hallway, down a stairwell, and it's going to be collected up in a big register somewhere as a return. All right. So if for whatever reason you like to live in a house where you shut doors and you don't have any detail that's designed to let air flow with a door shut, then you can actually inhibit the natural airflow and respiration of your HVAC system, which isn't necessarily terrible. But if you do that in a room where it makes it hard to listen, if this bedroom door, this closet door here, if this closet door is shut and it's got closet up to the bottom of the door, there's not much air going through this door. Some air is going to go around the crack, some air is going to go through the keyhole. That's about it. Not a lot of air. And what that means is if some air conditioner is trying to blow cool air into this room to cool it down, the air only cools down if it can get into the room, and it can only get into the room if it can also get out of the room. So if this door's shut and this is the way the air is designed to flow through for the system, then I can't push cool air into this room. I might be able to push a little bit because it's going to pressurize the room and it's going to leak out of different things. Okay, so I can get a little bit, but not a lot. So if you do that, then now this room is going to get warmer. And now, because you can't control it well with the air, if you did not have insulation in your interior walls, if this was an interior wall to the rest of the house, if there was no insulation in this room would stay relatively cool, especially if all the other rooms, if all the other walls in this room were exterior walls. Heat's trying to come into my cold air, my nice air conditioned house through those walls. And this was where I could maintain connection with the cool part of my house and the air wasn't working very well. Then that cool energy or lack of energy is going to be able to balance this room. Unless I insulate this wall and then I isolate this room from that room thermally, that can be a problem. Because now I have a room that's fully insulated, and let's say 2 or 3 of the 4 walls of the room are exterior walls, accepting heat into the house. And the other 2 are sort of they're insulated, but they're air conditioned. You can see how this is a problem, hopefully. An exaggeration of this point for the airflow purposes was I saw somebody design a special hidden gun safe room into their building. And it was designed to have an AC register in the ceiling come into the room. But the way they built the door into the shelving to make it like a secret hidden door, it was very well sealed. Okay. And they always well, why is it not cooling down in that room? The AC is blowing in the room. No, the AC is not blowing into the room because that's not how fluid flow works. It has to blow into the room and out of the room somewhere else. Okay. It's a flow in one way, out another way. You can't just pump air into a room with air in it. The air's got to go somewhere else. All right. So yes, you can sound insulate interior walls. That's a good thing to do if you have a particular use case. Like a master bedroom, it's a great room to insulate because parents oftentimes want to do things that are noisy. There are other ways to build walls that are better at keeping sound out, like staggered studs. Use a 2x6 plate and 2x4s offset. So there's actually no conductive sound through the wall. There's all kinds of stuff you could do. But just be aware that could be a result. Now, if you have a well-managed AC system and you're fine, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about insulating your interior walls. In terms of thermal problems, you'll be okay. An example of that is if you have nowadays, mini split systems in houses, very popular. Okay. If I've got a wall unit on every room in my house, then every room is controlled individually. And I don't care if this room is insulated from that room because they're controlled by their own unit. So it's fine. There's no problem. So hope that was helpful. But yeah, those are the considerations. Got to redesign my house. Forgot the secret gun room. Well, I've got news for you, Centurion. There's a way for you to do that in my school group. I'll show you. The program shows you how to use the software. All you got to do is go get the license. It's $200 a month from the licensed people to go use the software. You can design your room over and over and over as many times as you like. Awesome. So yeah, those are the considerations I give to installation. If you have other things, I mean, I can't go on and on and on about like all the possible ways I could use installation, but hopefully that was roundabout enough a way to like summarize what's important, what you should consider, what things might have you not considered before. So yeah, guys, hopefully that was helpful. That's all I got. Again, if you have not joined my Skool server, please hop on over. Link is in the description below. I will post it again here in the chat. There it comes, coming your way in about 7 seconds or something. And yeah, I've got all kinds of good updates. Installation with the ADU over here is done. Hopefully it's supposed to get inspected today. Hopefully I can have an answer. Maybe I'll find out when I hop off the stream and look at my phone. That'd be great if we passed. Sheetrock's getting delivered on half tomorrow and half on the 22nd. So we'll have a bunch of stuff to do. Mr. Green Observer in the chat, he's actually coming up here to Washington to help me with this thing. And so he's going to pop up. And you'll see a little bit of him, most likely, unless he's shy. But we'll find out. He's pretty ripped, so he doesn't have a reason to be shy. So anyway, that's what we got coming up, guys. Hope you guys learned something. If you have any ideas and you're like, hey, you know what? I don't know about this thing. Just throw it in the Skool server. Or like throw it, I guess, in the Telegram if you want. Preferably the Skool server. Or let me know right now. Like, hey, what do you want to hear? What do you want to learn about next week? Because I'm always taking in ideas. This particular idea came from Centurion. There he is right here, Centurion. He gave me the idea for talking about installation because he asked a question. I was like, you know what? That's a great question. I could answer that here on this one thing summary, or I could talk about it and give you more information. So here we go. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Elena. Thank you, everybody. There's a Green Observer wearing the cowboy hat. He's going to come help me install siding and hang some sheetrock. Maybe do a little bit of mudding, tape and texture and kind of fun stuff like that, huh? Yeah, that's pretty fun stuff. I think we all like that stuff. All right, guys. Let's see. I thank you all for coming and spending your valuable time here. This has been a really fun one. Been a pop and chat. I'm excited to have all you guys part of the community, interacting with each other, and like being this like great little thing you got going on. This is very awesome. Thank you for spending your valuable time here. And remember, guys, to always just keep building stuff because that's what we like to do here. Let's take it out with none other than the Green Observer. Here we go, folks.